Oh no, it's alright. I'll come right now. Just saying, if you're standing there. All right, everyone. So welcome to this new 4-week Choicez series here that we have at Zigi's. So it's great to have you all here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Patrick Langrell. I'm the chaplaincy convener at the University of Notre Dame. Just a few minutes down the road, I think we have a few ND students here. You made a good choice coming here. In fact, without even realising it probably, you actually made tons of little choices like this throughout the day. In fact, you probably made about 100 or so just today. It's something that we do so often. It's something that we do so often that we don't actually really think about it too much. But when you think about it, choices are the very thing that make up most of our major life decisions about life, love, the future and faith. And so that's what this series is a little bit about, just thinking a little bit more deeply about the things that we do all the time. And you might think, well, why would we want to do that? What's the point of thinking about choices? Well, I think it's because in some way choices, really deeply matter to us. They sort of shape us into who we are. Zigi has great food here. He'd be the first one to say, you are what you eat. And if you eat here, then you are very, very good because the food here is very, very good. But the wisest of the wise people also would say through thousands of generations that you really are, to a large extent, shaped by the choices that you make. So that's what we're going to do here a little bit tonight. I know that sounds a little bit daunting, but when you think about it, choices can sometimes appear to us as a little bit daunting. We can sometimes be quite anxious and nervous when it comes to making choices. And those sometimes aren't just over the big ones, but sometimes over small ones or small ones in difficult circumstances. And I think we can often feel like we don't really have the tools or equipped with the right peace or clarity of mind to know how to navigate difficult situations, to know how to choose one in a way that makes us genuinely happy. So that's what we're here to do. I see most of you here are all sort of uni students. Might be a few young professionals as well scattered throughout the crowd. This event is mainly catered towards university students, so most of the issues are ones that uni students will deal with, but they'll obviously be relatable to anyone of any age. But I just sort of ask when we get to the more interactive Q&A part of the night that if you keep the questions or comments that have been preference to uni students first, and then if it sort of lags on a little bit, then feel free to pop in if you're outside of that bracket. On a similar note about uni students, we actually have someone here tonight who's a little bit perplexed, quite confused, some would say a little ditzy, but this person has decided to resolve the worries and fears and concerns that she has by writing a letter to a wise old sage who is here tonight as well to answer any of her concerns and fears. Very old, very esteemed, internationally renowned. Yeah, sorry. International Scottish philosopher who also happens to be the Senior Deputy Vice Chancellor of Notre Dame University, so he runs the place just a few blocks around from here. And he'll be responding to some of these concerns that this mysterious anonymous writer, pen writer, will be penning. And hopefully if some of those fears and concerns are addressed, then she might be able to write for a few more weeks that will keep us here for the 4-week series, fingers crossed. So that's basically the format for the evening. We'll have the mysterious letter, we'll have Hayden's response, and then time for Q&A. Please, without further ado, welcome our two guests.
I wrote this in microscopic writing, so bear with me. Dear Professor Ramsey, this is a little random. We haven't met before. My name's Kathy. I heard you speak a few years ago at one of those open days, and you were on about the importance of having a deeply thought out view of life, a worldview, which would help you work out how to live well and what living well looks like. I really didn't get it at the time, but I've been thinking about it lately, and so I thought I would take a chance and write to you in the hope that you might be able to help me to work it all out, or at least give me somewhere to start. No, if you're wondering, I don't usually write random people letters, but you seemed like you were someone who cared about this outside of the lecture room, and I really hope that's true, otherwise this is really embarrassing. If this is outside of your job description, that's totally fine. I promise I won't stalk you until you help me, although that is tempting. Anyway, I suppose I should probably tell you a little bit about myself. I'm in my second year of uni, not Notre Dame. No offense, but I wanted to go to a uni that people had actually heard of. Anyway, I think I made the wrong decision. Yeah, I'm really not sure if I made the right decision. I'm studying law and I'm really struggling. Not with my marks, I passed almost everything, but I'm not really sure if I want to be a lawyer, and I'm not really sure why I'm doing this. I mean, law is great, and Mum and Dad were so supportive and so proud when I got in, and I really do want to make them proud. Law will give me a great future, a great income, it's reputable and it means something. I don't know, I'm not sure if it's for me, and I'm so worried I'll wake up one day and wonder what I'm doing with my life. On one hand, I'm so desperate to get a job because a job is everything, but on the other hand, I'm so terrified of being stuck in a job, in a life that doesn't fit me. But then we come to Mum and Dad. They're so sure that it's perfect for me. They're so encouraging and they're there all the time. I'm still at home, so it's just this constant, I don't want to say pressure, but pressure. I don't know how to tell them, and we're just not seeing eye to eye on so many things at the moment. And to be honest, church feels a little bit like my law degree at the moment. It means so much to my parents that we go to Mass together every Sunday, but I just sit there in my own little world. I go because I've always gone, but I'm worried that there's supposed to be more than that. Life is supposed to be more than just turning up. And I don't want to wake up in a few years and still feel like this. Okay, so this is getting pretty deep and you're basically a total stranger, so I think I might stop there before I start opening up about my drug addiction. Kidding! Totally kidding. I think what I'm trying to say is that I'm really worried about so many things at the moment, and I don't know how to even begin to work through them. It's dawned on me really recently that it's all up to me. I am totally responsible for my future happiness. If I wake up and feel like this, there is nothing authentic in my life. If I'm still doing law and going to church but feeling blah, then it's my own fault. But I don't know how to fix it, and I can't just drop everything because I have to make money. Money makes the world go round, and I'll never have freedom or independence without it. But there's got to be another way. Any advice?
Well, Cassie, you got one thing absolutely right at the end there. It really is all up to you, and that's precisely why this stuff can feel so daunting. It really is all up to you. But one thing we have to remember is many other people, including this room, these are all now, of course, the friends of Cassie for the next 4 weeks. Everybody in this room has been through what you're going through. People have gone through this stuff before, and there is a way of thinking well about these things. There really is a way of making good choices. There's a good way of making good choices. If we put some thought into this, we can maybe not solve your problems. Why? Because only you can solve your problems. You saw that yourself at the end. But we can pull some of our collective wisdom. We can tap into some of the wisdom of tradition. And let's remember, this is an event under the chaplaincy of a Catholic university. So we'll be largely thinking in terms of that tradition. But we can pull what's out there. We can do something here. Now, the first thing I'd like to say, Cassie and friends, actually the very first thing I'd like to say is the revelation that Patrick Langrell watches The Bachelor was the most entertaining moment so far. There is a rumour that Patrick was actually sought for the part of The Bachelor, which would make me a sort of grandfather of Bachelor, I imagine. But in any case, let's get on to choices. There's a whole art to making a good choice. And when the art comes down to it, there are two key elements. One element of choice making is your goal, G-O-A-L, your goal. The second element of good choice making is the means to get to your goal. Now that sounds incredibly simple, and of course it isn't. Because there's a whole mass of theory and people crawling everywhere. There's a whole mass of theory and practice and tradition around just how you identify a true goal and just how you work out good means. What we're going to try to do, I imagine, over the next 4 weeks of getting to know Cassie better, what we're going to try and do is, in a fairly gentle way, to bring out some of the stuff around identifying goals and identifying good means. We're going to do that by picking up key points from Cassie's letters as the week goes on. just to give you a quick insight, when it comes to identifying a good goal, the first question you should be asking yourself, the first question you should be asking yourself is this goal compatible with my total vision? Right? We are not like little ants crawling about in the ground, just bit of food here, bit of food there, goal here, goal there. Our goals form wonderful harmonies. They fit together, and they should reflect our vision of life. Each of you, believe it or not, has a vision of what a good life for a young person in Sydney looks like. Everyone has, and some of you are just in the process of developing it, I know that, but every one of you has your vision of a good life. Your goals should be consistent with that vision. You should never let anybody talk you into, force you into, deceive you into, coerce you into following a goal incompatible with that vision. So we're going to find there's a whole body of theory and practice, insight and wisdom around identifying a goal. We're going to find the same around identifying the means we take to achieve our goals. It might look easy. Guy is thirsty. What do you do if your goal is to slake your thirst? You have a drink. But there's a heck of a lot of thought actually built into that. The means you take to achieve your goals have to first of all acknowledge the facts. Right, if this is a glass of turpentine here and I take it to slake my thirst, it ain't going to work, is it? Your means must match up to the facts. And you have a duty to yourself and to your own reason, your own mind, to know the facts. Secondly, your means have to be logical. You know, if you've got a thirst and there's water there and there's a plate of salt and vinegar chips there and you eat the salt and vinegar chips to slake your thirst, this isn't logical. Yeah? So goals need to fit vision, means need to fit facts, and need to fit logic. Folks, that's the whole theory of what the philosophers and theologians call practical reasoning, the whole theory of choice in a nutshell. But let's get back to Cassie. Poor, confused Cassie, sitting in the corner on her red chair, wearing her red scarf. Cassie from Wollongong, who doesn't know what to do. Whatever you're going to do with your life, you're going to meet a few Cassies from Wollongong. And we need to think what to do. Not for her, because only she can do it herself, but with her. Okay? The first important notion Cassie mentioned, in my view, was worldview. She came up with that phrase near the beginning. She mentioned worldview. What is that? Folks, very quickly, you want to have a good goal, it has to reflect your vision. Your vision derives from your worldview. Your view of what the world is and what we should be doing in it, individually and collectively. We all are in the process of forming a worldview. Why do we want one of these, Hayden? Well, a worldview gives you two things. First of all, it gives you a framework to think inside and to act inside. The first thing a worldview gives you is a perimeter, a framework. You know where you are within the frame. The second thing it gives you is a foundation. Something to stand on, something to build on. Nobody's going to lead a good life as a 19-year-old or whatever you are unless you are looking for and then confirming and staying on some sort of foundation. Those two big, I almost said two big F words, that's not good in a Czechoslovakia. Framework and foundation. This is what your worldview is. Question for you, which you're going to hammer me with later, because I'm only speaking for 15 minutes here. Question from you. Where do we find the framework? Where do we find the foundation? I can't give you it. There's all sorts of sources for this. Where are you going to take your worldview from? Where's your foundation, your framework coming from? Is it from politicians? Well, maybe. Is it from the media? Your worldview has to come from somebody or something you trust, you have faith in. You're not going to develop a worldview unless it's on a foundation and gives a framework you trust. Question for you then. Who do you have faith in? Who is it? Is it your favourite band? Is it celebrity from TV? Is it your mum? That's maybe moving towards a better thing. Is it one of your teachers, your lecturer? Is it a priest? Is it the Pope? Is it God? That was Cassie's first thing, worldview. The second thing that really struck me was law. I think you were studying law at some complete ratbag university over here. This is being filmed, isn't it? You're studying law at one of our partner universities. That's good. Law is a great thing to study. I think a thing we need to be doing is thinking about why we go to university and what we're going to do afterwards. Believe it or not, the purpose of a university is not to help you get a job. That's something a university does, but it's not the purpose of a university. A university has one purpose alone, and that's to serve the noblest part of the human person, which is your mind. The university exists to help you explore the life of the mind, right? Now it does do another thing, and always did do, back to the first ones in the 1190s. Universities also exist to help you get a job, but I don't like that phrase. They exist to help you find a job. And the reason I prefer that phrase is in finding a job and finding a career pathway, you are hopefully finding yourself. Something about the experience of a university student has to be taking you from the superficial to substance. From just making money, getting a success, pleasing mum and dad with your career choice. Taking you from the superficial to the substance. What is the substance? Your identity. Cassie, is who you are. You're at a university to discover your identity, and you need to be asking in the study and career field, what's my goal here? Being a lawyer? Okay. Back to what the ancient professor said at that Choicez series, does that goal of being a lawyer fit my vision? Does it fit my vision of the good life? Is it consistent with the framework and foundation which I value above all else, for which I live, and if necessary, perhaps for which I would die? It's really, really important in the study and career area to get to matters of substance, to get to matters of your identity. I'm not saying your parents' expectations don't matter, but your parents do have a duty with their expectations to respect your identity and worldview. I think the next thing I got from your letter was the parents. I noticed, Cassie, that you were staying at home. Quite a few people may do that, I reckon. I come from Scotland. If I kick that right again, I'll pay to its owner. My clumsy feet. I come from a faraway cold land, and what happens when you reach age 17, you leave home, you change cities to go to university. That's how Britain works. In Australia, people tend to go to university in the city they grew up in, which seems quite bizarre to me, but that's what seems to happen here. And often people stay at home. There is nothing wrong with staying at home, nothing at all. But what you then have is adults of different generations in the one space. This is only going to work unless you're super rich and you own a sort of ranch type place. This is only going to work if everybody accepts that sacrifices have to be made here. You, Cassie, and mum and dad. You can't go on as you did when you were a child, and they can't go on as they did when you were a child. You've got intergenerational cohabitation here, and that is a very hard one to bring off. Something I think that can happen, a possible danger when you live at home, is you can miss out on the sense and experience of adventure, which, you know, guys like me who left home when we were 17 and changed cities got. You may be having great adventures. I'm the head of a university. I don't want to know what you do in your spare time. You may be having great adventures, hopefully good and morally improving ones, but you need that sense of adventure. And sometimes at home that can be harder. It can also be harder to develop the sense of independence if you're not, doing the full paying bills, cleaning stuff, having to deal with neighbours and so on, which adults do. If you're not yet doing that, and you're not going to do it until you're 34, it can be harder to develop the sense of independence. I don't think it's a serious problem. Clearly, Cassie, though, there are some tensions there in your situation. They need to be resolved. Can I say 3 more things before you're... You think I'm going for cheap laughs? I'm actually blind as a bat. That's why I'm staying up here. It's safer to say so you don't. I'd like to say 3 more quick things, please. Cassie mentioned church. I know what you mean, that sometimes one just sits through church and it goes woof over your head. I do know what you mean, and I remember what that was like. I often used to say, when I was speaking more about the church to people, one reason why church can seem boring is because you're not here. Because you're not there, well, probably lots of you are, but because young people aren't there. The church was established by Jesus Christ as a church of youth, as our great patron of our chaplaincy and of this event. St. John Paul the Great reminded us and revived for us. This is a church of youth. It only works when thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of millions of youth are pulsing with excitement and enthusiasm. Otherwise, church can feel, in worldly terms, boring. Now, we've got to watch that statement, because that statement could mean that we're trying to judge the church in entertainment terms. It's not immediately giving me the rah, rah, rah. That ain't what it's there for. It's there to save souls and to allow people to say the biggest thank you of their life, their week, their day to God, and to receive in turn grace beyond words. And that is clearly not the standards we use to judge something like the young guys here who watch The Bachelor. So, church can be boring if young people aren't fully involved, and sometimes it's hard for young people to be fully involved because old people like me hold them at arm's length and push them out. Again, sometimes between the generations there can be a bit of a failure to understand each other. We need to work harder, and if you're a Christian or if you're a religious believer in another tradition, we need to pray harder on that one. Money, yes, you need money. Of course you need money, which means you probably need to work while you're studying, and you certainly need to work after it. It's an old cliche, but we all know that money doesn't buy everything. All of us, even if we are a bit sort of money motivated, all of us would agree that when you witness great acts of service, of self-sacrifice, great civic acts of love, familial love, it changes everything, and you can't buy it, and you certainly may not sell it. I read on a train on Saturday morning on the way up to Blue Mountains something so awful that I think I will say I've been reading about this appalling tragedy in Iraq over weeks, and I don't know about you, but I read this stuff and it's just one of the screens I scan because I have to read heaps of stuff all day for my work. I read about, it was a very moving story, I read about on the top of Mount Sindar, after the American airlift, doctors, I think they were French doctors, found a little boy aged 8 who'd been left behind. He had a disease which caused him to be paralysed, and part of the horror of the paralysis is he can't blink. And he'd been lying for 24 hours in 50-degree sunlight, and he can't blink, so the sun had burned his eyes out. Which brought the Iraq, still does actually, brings the Iraq situation right there to me and to you too, I'm sure. But the action of the doctors who went back and got him and have managed to restore him not to sight but to life, how do you possibly, with that sense of value, categorise it in economic terms? Basically, you want to take your wallet out and give them, those doctors, everything in it and say, keep doing it, keep doing it. The most important things are not capturable in economic terms. The most important thing of all is persons. A great non-Catholic philosopher said, perhaps better than anybody else, that persons, his name was Immanuel Kant, who's a German Protestant thinker. He said, possibly better than anyone else, that persons have a value called dignity. And dignity is a word we throw around all the time, but Kant told us precisely what dignity is. Some things, all things, have a price. Right, give me your phone. Yes. I've got our phone. The phone has a price. If you go and give these Apple guys about $16,000, they'll give you one of these. Or if you have a really expensive pair of plastic cufflinks, if the lady thinks they're roughly equivalent in price to phone, she might take the cufflinks, which would be not much use to her, and give you the phone. Phones have price. All things have price. Persons are literally, people are beyond price. They have no price. What do we call their value? We call it dignity. Dignity is the value beyond all price, which attaches only to persons because of the God-given creation and their rational nature. Persons and the most important things to do with us, which are basically, when it comes down to it, thinking true thoughts, doing good things, and experiencing great beauty. Those are the things which Cassie's money cannot buy her. Lastly, I want to say a word about peace. The reason I want to finish with peace is Cassie, in week 1, is a bit churned up. She's a bit turbulent. She's not going to bits. I've heard much worse. And we can together put Cassie back together through our questions and discussion. But she's not fully at peace. Peace doesn't mean being at utter tranquility. If any of you are searching for that, being totally serene and absolute tranquility, let me say to you, you'll find it for short periods in prayer or in love, and that's about it in this life. However, there is a very genuine peace that comes about when all the different parts of your personality are fitting together. Now, you know how it is when one part of you, one part of your nature is sort of dominating you. It might be the desire for some sort of substance, it might be desire for sex, it might be desire for money, it might be, I don't know, just some part of you that's out of sync. You're eating too much, or you can't make yourself eat food. You're doing gym 3 times a day, and if you miss it, you're going slightly crazy. You're studying I'm just going to say studying. Worth a go. But peace comes when all of the parts of your personality are in harmony, so that your emotions are basically obeying your judgment the way you want them to be. When things are basically in sync with that world view, that foundation and framework which you have identified and by which you are testing potential goals, which you will then seek logically and in accordance with the facts. That is a sort of peace. And one thing that helps bring about that sort of peace is making good choices. So together with lovely Cassie over here, what we'll do for the next 4 weeks, if you can come along, just for 4 weeks, we'll think about those sort of choices, and in particular how you make them. I want to say to you very honestly, I have no special wisdom here. I have made more mistakes than all of you, possibly than all of you put together, just looking at you. I've made more mistakes in my life than you can conceive of. I worked as a philosopher for about 150 years. That taught me a little bit about how to rationalize your mistakes and make yourself look a bit better, but not much more than that. So please, I'm not talking to Cassie or to any of you as an expert in choice making tonight, just as a very fallible, slightly older fellow sinner who remembers what it was like to get some things wrong and doesn't really have any deep answers for the very serious problems. For those, you go to a counsellor, you go to our chaplaincy or a chaplaincy in your own institution, you talk to mum and dad if you're close there, you talk to a priest or a minister of religion if you have one, but the one thing you do on bended knee, if you have serious problems, you listen for church bells. That's my mobile tone, sorry. Yeah, you can be quiet now, you've played your part. If you have very serious problems, you talk to someone. If you have serious problems, for pity's sake, don't keep them inside your lovely heads, but come and talk to someone.